Years of cruel isolation, with his face hidden, even from his guards. They were also told to kill him on the spot if he so much as uttered a single word about his past. Who imprisoned him, and why? Some answers to those questions provided the basic plot for the classic tale by Alexander Dumas, The Man in the Iron Mask. It was a fascinating work of fiction, but it was based on an even more astounding fact. There was a real man imprisoned behind a real mask, and we'll attempt to reveal the face lurking behind it as we begin our exploration of the strange, the bizarre, the unexpected. Join an expedition to rescue a fabled treasure of Egypt and pay what could be a last visit to view the Last Supper, now in danger of destruction. Take flight on the wings of a falcon as it seeks out its prey. Explore the icy waters of the South Atlantic as a marauding sea lion creates panic in a colony of penguins. Tour a miniature city in Denmark and take a close look as patient artistry transforms matchsticks into masterpieces. Witness the tense moment when a diamond in the rough is transformed into $1 million jewel or shattered into fragments. See the art of ancient cavemen before it is lost forever. The strange, the bizarre, the unexpected. These are the kinds of subjects a man named Robert L. Ripley challenged us to believe it or not. A mask of iron forged during the reign of Louis XIV was the dramatic centerpiece of a most unusual punishment depicted in The Man in the Iron Mask, starring Richard Chamberlain. As told by Alexander Dumas, the bizarre imprisonment was decreed by the King of France. The royal command was terrifying in its sinister simplicity. The prisoner's face was to be sealed behind the iron mask forever.
No, I beg you, no. I have done nothing. Please, I beg you, no. No, no, no.
In Dumas' classic novel, the unfortunate hero was doomed to live within a mask of iron. And in the book, as well as the film, the hero finally escapes. In reality, however, there was no happy ending. The actual hero did not survive his imprisonment, and the mask was not of iron, but of velvet. The year was 1669. Operating under secret orders issued by the king, a certain Captain Saint-Maur was placed in charge of a man whose identity was to be as carefully guarded as his person. Although sealed into a velvet mask, the prisoner was not to be mistreated. The captain was authorized to kill him instantly if the stranger spoke his name or attempted to reveal his face. The king's orders were followed to the letter, and a lifetime of anonymous imprisonment began for the man in the velvet mask. Those are the bare bones of the story. Of far more interest are the reasons behind the man's strange incarceration. Among the various theories advanced, the most astonishing is that the mysterious man in the velvet mask may have been the true father of King Louis XIV of France. King Louis XIII, it seems, was incapable of producing an heir. To assure royal continuity through Queen Anne, some say courtiers arranged for a child to be sired by the masked stranger. So, to keep the secret safe, he was supposedly dispatched to the French colony of Canada in hopes he would be forgotten. But when Louis XIV succeeded to the throne, the man decided to return to France. As father of the king, he assumed that great wealth and the glitter of court life at Versailles would be rightfully his. He expected a royal welcome from his son. Instead, he found oblivion. It was said his resemblance to the king was uncanny, and for this reason alone, his face was never to be seen. His last years were spent in the Bastille, where he died in 1703. He remained a mystery to the end. His body was buried under a false name, and his occupation given as valet. But was he the father of a king? No one will ever know. After 34 years of imprisonment, the man in the velvet mask was dead. And the court of France promptly forgot he had ever existed. But Alexander Dumas did not. He replaced the velvet with iron and immortalized the mysterious stranger as the man in the iron mask. Believe it or not. The city of Amsterdam is deservedly famous for her scenic canals, but she possesses another side which, to some, is far more fascinating. They've been cutting and polishing stones in Europe for 500 years. Here in Amsterdam, Holland, and in Antwerp, Belgium, the diamond is king. 60% of the world's diamond dealing takes place in these two cities. Deals worth millions of dollars are transacted daily, sealed with just a handshake. The diamond trade is built on trust. Perhaps that's why they trust me with this $1 million. Most everyone knows that a diamond is one of the world's hardest substances. What is not so well known is that it can be reduced to powder with one sharp blow. Believe it or not. A diamond's mystical attraction can be both intoxicating and costly.
$730,000, $740,000, $760,000.
November 1969. In the bidding frenzy for the diamond Richard Burton bought for Elizabeth Taylor, the sky's the limit. More than an investment, it's an object of passion.
$1 million for it, $1 million. At $1,050,000.
So, $1 million extravagance that is, for some, a necessity.
But square cut or pear shape, these rocks don't lose their shape. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. Tiffany's. Cartier. Black Star, Ross, Gorham. Talk to me, Harry Winston. Tell me all about it.
In the salons of the world's most elegant jewelers, the affluent pay astronomical prices for glittering stones which are, ironically, identical in their chemical composition to worthless chunks of coal. Though man has been fascinated with diamonds for thousands of years, only in the last few hundred have we perfected the techniques to capture their full brilliance. This diamond chunk, known as the Premier Rose, weighed more than 300 carats, yet looked as unimpressive as a lump of dirty ice. Only by being cut could it achieve its full glory. To make that possible, the diamond is perfectly duplicated in plastic. By studying the copy, a strategy for cutting the diamond can be evolved. To see inside the diamond, the polisher will grind out tiny windows to reveal the secrets of the grain within. His intuition is all important because diamond cutting is more art than science. A painful decision is reached. To realize its full brilliance, the diamond must be cut in two. Because only a diamond is hard enough to cut a diamond, the blade is impregnated with diamond powder. The risks are enormous. A single mistake in cutting can ruin the gem. It takes weeks to cut a few millimeters into the world's hardest substance. At any moment, it might shatter. For the cutter, it is a harrowing ordeal. Then, the decision is reached to split the smaller piece. It must be cleaved with one hammer blow that will bring perfection or disaster. Perfection. Two lackluster chunks will soon become dazzling diamonds. Meanwhile, the Premier Rose is ready for shaping and polishing, a process that will take a costly toll. For the diamond to achieve its full brilliance, almost half of it will be ground into dust. At one point, the polisher grinds away over $100,000 worth of diamond dust a day. At last, from one crude stone, 3 masterpieces. A pear-shaped jewel over 31 carats, a round brilliant over 2 carats, and the phenomenal Premier Rose over 137 dazzling carats. Thanks to human artistry, man has not only improved on nature, he has glorified it. Such gems are so costly, it usually takes a nation to afford one. The crown jewels of the world are more than a monarchy's most precious treasures. In times of crisis, their value can save a nation from financial collapse. Dazzled by these symbols of wealth and power, many have dreamed of someday magically being able to create diamonds themselves. Today, Japanese scientists have achieved that breakthrough, transforming chunks of carbon into real diamonds. The process, which in nature requires millions of years, takes place in a laboratory in mere days. Although it is still a closely guarded secret, a few details have been released. The carbon is placed within a machine which will subject it to a force of 1 million pounds per square inch, equivalent to the Earth's pressure 160 miles underground. As the crushing pressure builds, so will the temperatures, to 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. Out of a closely monitored scientific process comes a surprising result. The man-made diamonds are identical to nature's creations, except in one extraordinary respect: their price. A small stone will cost only $20, But at such reasonable prices, will diamonds lose their glamorous mystique? Some diamonds have a value beyond price. Kept under heavy guard at the Smithsonian Institution, the Hope Diamond dazzles us with a macabre legend that surpasses its breathtaking 45 carats. For this fabled jewel is a glittering symbol of man's dark obsession with precious gems. There may be larger, more spectacular diamonds on Earth than the Hope Diamond, but none can claim to be more deadly. Unearthed in India, it was said that thieves plucked the glittering bauble from the eye of a Hindu temple goddess, and that's where an eerie and unsettling legend of a curse began. An adventurer and a gem trader named Jean Tavernier acquired the diamond under mysterious circumstances and sold it to Louis XIV, King of France, in 1668. Shortly afterwards, Tavernier, on a trip through Russia, would be torn to pieces by a pack of wolves. The diamond eventually passed to Marie Antoinette, a gift from her husband, Louis XVI. She loaned it to a Princess de Lamballe, and that unlucky lady was butchered by a Paris mob. A few weeks later, at the height of the French Revolution, Marie Antoinette, who had retrieved the jewel, lost her head to the guillotine. Then, the diamond surfaced in London in 1830. A banker, Henry Hope, acquired the diamond and gave it his name. Unfortunately, the diamond may have given its bad luck to several of the Hope heirs. One was to lose her fortune and her husband, and Hope's grandson was to die penniless. A succession of owners were even more unlucky. A Russian prince gave it to an actress at the Folies Bergère and then shot the unfortunate lady. A Greek owner and his wife were killed in a violent car crash, and a Turkish sultan who possessed the diamond for just a few months was later toppled in a military coup in 1909. The Hope Diamond then traveled to America in 1911. Evelyn Walsh McLean, the new owner, ignored the legend of the curse and fearlessly wore the lustrous diamond on every possible occasion. In the years to come, her husband would go insane, her daughter would die of a drug overdose, and she would become a morphine addict. Curse or coincidence? Well, in the long and sinister career of the Hope Diamond, few owners have escaped catastrophe of one sort or another. The most recent owner, the internationally known jeweler Harry Winston, showing enormous foresight, gave it away. This is a replica. The real Hope Diamond is safe and secure at the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. You can see it, but the guards won't let you touch it. They're there to protect the diamond and perhaps you. Believe it or not.
Someone once said, hope is a thing with feathers. And so it is when you consider these winged wonders are essential to our survival. By controlling the world's insect population, they help make our planet Earth habitable for human beings. A special concern of this aviary in Munich, Germany, is the breeding of rare and unusual birds. To encourage breeding, the birds are placed in a completely natural environment, and then hopefully, nature will take its course. Of more than 1.5 million species of birds that have populated the Earth, about 8,580, or only 0.5%, are still living. The extinction of even a single species is a tragic loss to all of us, and not only from a practical point of view. That single loss means that our world is that much more diminished of grace and beauty, and of all the other qualities that have made birds one of the most studied and cherished of animals.
Majestic in flight, birds of prey are gifted with a lethal grace. They have been endowed by nature with the power to bring swift and certain death from above. With eyesight 3 times better than our own, the falcon stalks its victim in midair before homing in for the kill. Its attack velocity can exceed 200 miles per hour. The kingfisher has the extraordinary ability to hover in midair, searching the water for prey. Only when it is locked on target does it take its deadly plunge. In delicate contrast, the hummingbird uses its long, hollow tongue like a soda straw to sip nectar as its wings beat an astonishing 75 times per second. Remarkably, a bird's instinct can rival human inventiveness with its ingenious creations. The weaver bird is one of nature's most accomplished architects. In a surprising reversal, the male, not the female of the species, constructs the nest. Using only his beak, he weaves an intricate creation. Its purpose is to attract a mate. The female watches attentively as, hanging upside down from his completed nest, the male displays himself. Behavior the female instinctively finds seductive. After mating, the weaver will retire to the comfort of the nest to raise her young. But another species, the cuckoo, plays a bizarre shell game with its eggs. In a smaller bird's nest, it lays an egg resembling those of the host bird. Unaware of the deception, the obliging host nurtures the cuckoo's egg along with its own. But the egg of the cuckoo takes less time to incubate than the host's eggs. As soon as the host has helped the cuckoo to hatch, the tiny fledgling will perform a grim task. In an instinctive act of destruction, the newly hatched cuckoo pushes the other eggs from the nest. It will even send other fledglings to their death. Once it has disposed of its rivals, the cuckoo chick greedily devours all the food the host bird can bring it. Believe it or not, the hard-working host will not object, even when it is dwarfed by the voracious trespasser in its nest. The cuckoo's bizarre charade assures survival in a hostile environment. The world's harshest environment has forced another bird to evolve different survival skills. Swimming with the agility of porpoises in the icy waters of the South Atlantic, penguins flap their wings to literally fly underwater. These rockhopper penguins flock each year to this desolate rookery near Tierra del Fuego, Argentina, to hatch and care for their young. For the surrounding waters are rich in the food they will need to sustain the next generation. The only way the thousands of fledgling penguins can be fed is for their parents to regurgitate their meal of fish and crustaceans. The young swallow the warm broth in a mouth-to-mouth feeding. As the penguins set out to sea again, driven by the never-ending quest for food, they are not alone. In the icy waters, a sea lion bull is lying in ambush. The sight of the predator sparks a penguin stampede, but not all will be lucky enough to escape. The slow or the unwary will fall easy prey. Despite the unrelenting attack, the penguins must return to the sea. They will be free to find food for their young as long as the sea lion toys with its helpless victims. Kills 20 penguins, then abandons the carcasses to scavenging gulls. Because a few penguins have been sacrificed, thousands of survivors can nurture the next generation. For even violence is part of nature's harmony. Often, a bird's fiercest enemy is man. When albatrosses flock to the Pacific island of Midway to breed, their landings endangered the flights of American jets. First, the Navy tried destroying the birds, but when they kept right on coming, the Navy decided to surrender. The goonie bird, as the locals affectionately called the albatross, quickly became the irreverent mascot of Midway. Before they knew it, the residents had succumbed to goonie mania. The ubiquitous Goonies play a game of chicken on Midway's roads. Driving here often requires a slalom run among the unflappable birds. The delicate task seems more unnerving for the drivers than for the Goonies themselves. As the time to leave Midway draws near, fledgling Goonies choose a spot dangerously close to the Midway landing strip to test their wings. Even for birds, flight is not purely instinctive. Learning to ride the wind on a 6-foot wingspan can be a painful process. Midway's main runway provides a dangerous obstacle to the bird's maiden flight. In the past, collisions have damaged aircraft and killed Goonies. Summoned by the control tower, a special Goonie bird squad has the ticklish mission of removing the 7-pound creatures that are keeping 75-ton transports from taking off.
The runway is clear up for any birds. Wind is 120 degrees at 90, cleared for takeoff, runway 6.
Midway, but they will always be welcome here, thanks to their gift for turning human enemies into friends.
Throughout history, there have been many wise old birds. There's a Basque legend of a bird that always tells the truth. Meanwhile, in Brittany, there are peasants who credit all birds with the power of human speech. And in every part of the world, there are people who believe that at one time at least, every bird had this power. How do I know all this? A little bird told me so. Believe it or not.
to create the new, often man must first destroy the old. But often, monuments of the past are destroyed through the violent instincts of man or the violent forces of nature. Above all, by the awesome power of time itself. Sometimes, our very way of life can take its toll on our best-loved monuments. Someone once coined the phrase that all good things must come to an end. Did he, I wonder, realize the terrible finality of that statement? There aren't too many people who don't recognize Venice. Hundreds of artists have painted it, thousands of tourists have photographed it, and millions of visitors have come here personally. Venice is one of the most recognizable places on Earth. A living museum of architectural treasures, Venice has been called man's most beautiful artifact. But for how much longer? Because Venice is disappearing, slowly, inch by inch. The city is being devoured by the water that surrounds her, by the air she breathes. In 1966, Venice suffered its worst flood in 1,000 years. Soon, the muddy waters of the Adriatic Sea inundated the city over 200 days every year. A third of the populace fled the city they loved. But the architecture of Venice could not so easily escape its fate. The air of Venice poses its own threat. The very industries that support the life of the city are destroying it. Sulfurous pollutants from nearby chemical factories wreak havoc on a 1,000-year-old heritage. Layers of black deposit deface the crowning glory of Venice, her architecture. And yet, the black stains conceal an even greater danger, the deep rot beneath, an affliction so devastating, the Venetians call it the leprosy of the stone. The face of Venice has been gravely scarred. The struggle to save her is a challenge that may require nothing short of a miracle to be achieved. The 2,400-year-old Parthenon in Athens, Greece, has been wrecked by bombs, plundered by greedy collectors. Today it suffers a more bizarre peril from an inhuman enemy. Rare, destructive bacteria and parasites which infest the marble, consuming the stone itself. In Rome, the fierce roar of the city's traffic is now cracking the walls of the Coliseum, where Christians were once thrown to the lions. An amphitheater that survived 2,000 years of turbulent history is today endangered by vibrations from the busy streets that shake the ancient monument to its very foundations. Also endangered, in a Milan monastery, a breathtaking depiction of a holy event that is a sacred treasure. Just as Venice is one of the world's most recognizable cities, behind all this scaffolding is one of the world's most recognizable paintings, Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper. Unlike Venice, Milan doesn't have the sea eating away at her foundations, but the air here is even more destructive. For almost 500 years, the church's polluted air has tormented the serene face of Christ. Ironically, Leonardo himself is largely to blame for the plight of his masterpiece, for the tempera pigment he had used to create his unforgettable images would not adhere to the church wall. Today, believe it or not, as specialists struggle to preserve it, Leonardo's Last Supper faces its last chance of survival. But it is possible to reverse the course of destruction. Construction of the Aswan Dam in Egypt caused the surrounding desert to be flooded with millions of gallons of water. Devastation was the seemingly inevitable price of progress. Along the Nile, villages had to be hastily evacuated before the deluge. Trapped in the onslaught of the rapidly rising waters were countless temples, Egypt's priceless heritage from the golden age of the pharaohs. The magnificent temple of Abu Simbel was also doomed. The challenge seemed more perplexing than the riddle of the Sphinx. The gigantic statues of the pharaoh Ramses II had to be lifted above the rising Nile, but they stood 70 feet high and weighed 1,200 tons apiece. An international rescue effort was spearheaded by the United Nations and the United States. They chose a bold strategy to cut the entire temple into massive blocks weighing 20 to 30 tons apiece, then move them to a safe new site 200 feet above the Nile. There, they would be reassembled like a jigsaw puzzle. For protection, the statues of the pharaohs suffered the indignity of being buried to their necks in sand. Workers painstakingly cut seams less than a quarter-inch wide. As the deadline approached, they sawed day and night. To avoid scarring the face of the pharaoh, his colossal head was removed in a single piece, weighing 30 tons. At his new location, his head fit into place with the astonishing tolerance of 1/25th of an inch. 200 feet above the Nile, the pharaoh could continue his reign, facing east to greet the rising sun as he had for over 3,000 years. Abu Simbel is proof that man need not surrender the treasures of his past to modern forces of destruction. But perhaps nowhere have those destructive forces been stranger than in a remote corner of France, the caves of Lascaux. Here at the fortress La Roque-Saint-Christophe, Neanderthal man took shelter from prehistoric predators. His bones, a few simple tools, and caves like these are the only proof of his existence. 80,000 years later, there had evolved a special breed of cavemen, Cro-Magnon. In the caves of Lascaux, these survivors of the last ice age left proof of their highly developed skills, both as hunters and artists. The anonymous Cro-Magnon painters depicted a startling menagerie. Hundreds of portraits of Paleolithic creatures that have been extinct in this French valley for thousands of years. Extinct everywhere, that is, but on the walls and ceilings of Lascaux. In one of history's tragic ironies, our very fascination with the paintings of Lascaux threatened to obliterate them. The carbon dioxide from the breath of thousands of visitors and the warmth from artificial lighting nourished harmful algae and fungi which defaced the cave walls. Either the cave paintings were doomed, or modern man had to be exiled forever. There could be but one tragic solution to the dilemma. In 1945, just 5 years after their discovery, the caves of Lascaux were declared a national monument. 19 years later, the French government ordered the caves sealed. Modern man was forbidden from trespassing into his own past. And so, what is probably the oldest museum of its kind in the entire world has closed its doors to the public forever. Believe believe it or not.
Toys make children feel like adults, and adults feel like children. Legoland is a place where we can all be giants, masters of a perfect tiny world. This park is the creation of Gottfried Christensen, the inventor of the Lego system of plastic blocks. I always loved dollhouses. I imagined a whole world in miniatures existed around me when I played with mine. That world is real here in Billund, Denmark, in this 20-acre park of tiny replicas. What's also extraordinary about this miniature world is that everything in it has been painstakingly built of tiny plastic bricks. Here, the simplest of building blocks can create the most elaborate of panoramas. The scaled-down scenery includes a meticulous reproduction of Amsterdam's canals. The Lilliputian community has mushroomed into a gigantic tourist attraction. The park welcomes almost 1 million life-size visitors a year. This tiny reflection of our world keeps pace with the future. The Space Shuttle Columbia, their newest replica, took 7 months to build. Ancient monuments have also been reproduced, faithful to the smallest detail. To see the originals would require a round-the-world journey. But here, tourists can enjoy a bird's-eye view of them in miniature. Believe it or not, there are more than 1.5 million tiny bricks in this replica of Mount Rushmore. This copy is almost as remarkable as the real thing.
For John Hart, railroads are a consuming passion that has also consumed his house. So elaborate are his trains that railroad buffs help man the controls inside his home in Surbiton, England. In the unfortunate event of Mr. Hart's demise, they'll make sure his trains keep right on running. The railroad provides regular service between kitchen, yard, and garage. For John Hart, it offers a special kind of trip.
I think possibly there is something about a model railway which enables one to become a little king over one's own empire. I'm not saying that in the dictatorship type of the meaning, but I think there's something in all of us that likes to be just a little bit on top.
Despite his collection of 13,000 toy soldiers, John Ruddle isn't satisfied. To swell his army's ranks, he pours molten lead into a plaster of Paris mold, creating more raw recruits. Then he will give them a spit and polish shine, painting on elaborate uniforms. Some collectors lock away their toy soldiers to gather dust. John Ruddle will test his in the heat of battle in the yard of his suburban London home. A troop train rushes in reinforcements. Full-scale war is about to erupt in his garden. As commander, John Ruddle maps out the strategy. But once the battle lines are drawn, he expects every toy soldier to do his duty. Sometimes, creating a miniature world can be both costly and elaborate. But in London, one extraordinary sculptor has allowed an object as simple as a household match to fire his imagination. Irwin Crockett began his unlikely craft as therapy for his arthritis. His hobby soon became his passion. Crockett opens every matchbox with a critical eye. A box of 40 will yield only a few matches suitable for carving. It took Crockett 18 painstaking hours to carve a wooden chain fashioned from a single matchstick. Captured in miniature, even mundane objects become things of wonder. With the simplest of materials and extraordinary craftsmanship, Erwin Crockett has created a world that is truly matchless. Serious players call these bones, perhaps because at one time that's what they were made of. Animal or human, no one knows for sure. These are made of plastic, all 28 of them. And I propose to build a tower that seems to defy gravity, supported on just 3 upright dominoes. Well, precarious perhaps, but firm. Now, would you believe that I could remove 2 of the 3 supporting dominoes and the tower will still stand? No. Watch. And the tower still stands. You suspect perhaps a camera trick or a touch of glue, huh? Not so. Watch. Oh. Believe it or not. Next on Ripley's Believe It or Not, take a tour of the Paris underground to visit the Empire of the Dead, witness the extraordinary results of a ritual in Japan, visit some of the most unusual houses in the world, see one of the most bizarre collections ever assembled, measure up to the tallest woman, and review the life of a young giant who astounded medical science. Next on Ripley's Believe It or Not.
This is David Hartman. Tomorrow, Jean Harris talks about the murder of Dr. Tarnower and her life in prison. Also, Diane Carroll and Dick Van Patten. This week, Jack Lemmon and Debbie Reynolds, plus all the news and weather on Good Morning America.
Tuesday, the opening of a shopping mall means hard times for Cunningham Hardware on Happy Days. Then Laverne's posing as a ballet dancer to rescue Squiggy from the Russians on Laverne and Shirley. Now stay tuned for Matt Houston next.